Aikido is a Japanese martial art, and it has to do with, firstly, harmonizing your body, harmonizing your energy with the energy of what we call the heavens and what we call the earth, so that you, as the sort of mediator with these things, with these energies, you find yourself in the center alignment. And that's something that's a lot easier said than done. And so one of the intelligences here is that by getting this to manifest in your body, in your physical structure, it actually changes the way you relate psychologically, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, on all these different levels. So we begin by learning how to hold our structure in a way that has integrity and is connected, is both expansive and rooted, is aligned, centered, all these different aspects. And then what we do is we go a step further and we study how does that manifest in stress, under duress, when difficulty is coming in. So a practitioner will be, in a certain pose or something like that, and then there'll be some attack will come in. And for a lot of people, that's a really beautiful moment. It's a moment of gift, actually, to be able to practice in a very safe environment what it is to encounter conflict and difficulty and work that edge from this place of wholeness and center. Now, the other thing to say is that in Aikido specifically, it's nonviolent. So we don't use the power that comes from this in a way that damages anybody. So when it's just a purely physical level, we learn how to de-escalate physically a situation without causing harm to somebody. It's a beautiful practice. It's something that I've got children that are as young as 4 and people that are well beyond retirement age are coming into the practice, male and female. And it's a really wholesome and healing thing. Down. Up. Turning. So one of the things that you encounter right away when you come into Aikido practice is that you are shown certain movements. There are certain stances that we use and certain ways of holding the inner structure and certain attacks, and then there's a lot of repetition. A certain energy comes in, you receive it, you move in a certain way, pass through that, let it go, and over and over and over this repetition happens. And the reason for this is very deep, actually, because you need to, again, find a way to let your body learn this. Let your body feel this. And it's a kind of training that as you experience it over and over, it sort of restructures physically how you deal with energy that comes at you. And you can't do that just sort of, reading the book, watching the video, doing a class. It's the kind of thing that requires ongoing connection until ultimately it becomes your normal mode of being, this sort of centered, rooted, open, clear kind of thing. To be sure, we all have moments where that closes down again, but they become smaller and smaller and less catastrophic. When those closures happen, you're aware that they're happening. You're not just yanked around by them. You're able to notice it, let it go, and it can come back to center and engage in a way that you know is more true, more helpful, and more evolved. Again, keep your center and your root, and then moving. So it's coming here. Yeah, he wants this way, right? And as he goes, this way. Thing that happens here is we have the Toledo Zen Center. So there's 2 different practices that I facilitate. One is the Aikido training, which is the Japanese martial art, and the other is traditional Zen Buddhist practice. And so there's some crossover. There's definitely some students who partake in both, but there's a lot of folks who just practice in either or. So let me talk a little bit about the Zen piece. Zen is it's sort of a subset of Buddhist practice, and it has to do with awakening, directly awakening. So in that sense, it has everything to do with individual practice. And the main practice in Zen is, interestingly enough, called Zazen, which means seated Zen. So Zazen is not meditation. Meditation is a very different kind of thing, actually. So Zazen is the process of just being and embodying the truth of yourself. And that sounds kind of, maybe airy-fairy, but it's not. And it takes real practice to be able to let your true self unfold and not be sort of yanked around a lot. So at the Zen Center, we practice every Wednesday night, and we get together. And when you come out, what will happen is you'll get a beginning instruction in what Zazen is. There's some liturgy that we do. There's some chanting practice that happens for a couple of minutes in the beginning. There's also walking meditation time, which is very important, getting that stillness to function in movement. Then there's talks that are offered, Dharma talks. We have a discussion around what's going on. And then sometimes we also do interview. And interview is a very important part in the Zen lineage, where there's a direct face-to-face meeting. And some students, well, everybody starts doing breath work. That's the first sort of beginning work that happens. And it's a complete path unto itself. Some students then move into what's called shikantaza. And shikantaza is just sit, which is a very deep practice. And then there's koan study. And koan study is something where the student is working with particular aspects of the teaching and trying to embody them in a way that catalyzes opening experiences. So, and all of those are available here at the Toledo Zen Center. So, one of the things that I'm really excited about with this evolutionary bodywork sort of group is that all the different practitioners and teachers that are sort of in alignment with this are, in a sense, working on the same issue from different modalities and different approaches. So for example, if you look at yoga and a real authentic yoga practice, the depth of what's going on there is very beautiful and very empowering and very much in alignment with what Aikido is doing. The same thing can be said for the different kind of bodywork massage therapists that we have, or the hypnotherapy practice. All these different ways of basically using the physical body to integrate and evolve. Now, evolving can be an easily misunderstood word. What we're talking about here is your consciousness evolving, your perspective evolving, the way you relate to yourself and to others and to the world and to the universe. That core level of awareness, that basic where you sit-ness, can grow and can develop, and in fact does. What we all find, however, is that if you try to do that simply intellectually by thinking about it, or if you try to create emotional experiences and you try to get in there through the gate of the emotion, you can do some work there, and it's important that it is done. But ultimately, if you can't manifest it physically, you haven't owned it yet. So that's one of the things that I really value about Aikido practice and all the other approaches that are represented here.